ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Thank you everybody for joining. So we will discuss today about who am I? There is a question which not many people necessarily think about, but some people do. And because the society is structured in such a way that not much attention is given here, even those people who think about it feel like, maybe I'm not thinking in the right direction. So we'll discuss a little bit about this. Who am I? So this is our third session. We've already had 2 sessions previously. And in our previous sessions, we discussed about scripture, just the last one, and so many different ways of learning, getting knowledge. And one of the ways of learning knowledge is to do experiment. One is to do intelligent guesswork. And the third is to know from authorities who are specialized in that way, because many of the things we can't even experiment. So we talked about how there are so many predictions which scriptures have made, so many different kind of sciences which are there. And the next session which we are going to talk today about is who am I? We may have heard Atma or soul, but what does it actually mean? What is the evidence behind it? So we'll see this from different perspectives. So scriptures, we talked about how scriptures, they are manuals, they are axiomatic truths, and they have predictions, which we have all discussed in our last session. So I'm not going to go into those details. So many times we have questions, different questions have different answers. One of the aspect is also that just like if a child wants to know who is the father, the mother is the one who tells who's the father. Similarly, scriptures are like the authority, the mother who can tell us more about, like a manual or like a mother. One can do genetic testing also to get to this conclusion. And easier and cheaper and straightforward method, which most people would choose, is to go by, hearing from authority, which is mother. So these are some of the added sections from what we learned last week. I've noticed that due to time constraints, I'm not able to spend as much time on each session. We try to concise it and do it within a 1 hour session, but some of these aspects, they have so much insight, so much discussion can be done. So if there are things which anybody would like to ask more, we can have further discussion. I'm just covering some of the aspects which I couldn't cover last week, and they are relevant for today's topic as well. So faith is an integral part of our life. This we talked about how worship is an important need, and scriptures provide or fulfill that. So we will continue to move forward. So talking about who am I, the science of soul. So if we were to analyze our current body, we see that there are different chemicals used in this body, and the most maximum amount of if we were to analyze the whole thing, the maximum content is that of water, right? More than 70% of the body is water, and water is very cheap. And then we have all the other elements: calcium, phosphate, potassium, sulfur, sodium, and so many other minerals. So if we were to see the combined just cost of these ingredients, it's not much actually. The ingredients are not much. Maybe by some calculation, it may be few dollars or few rupees. But nobody would say that my body is only costing a few dollars or few rupees. In fact, to save someone, hundreds and millions of dollars are actually spent in the hospitals, or if there is an accident, immediately the victims or the people who are injured, they are taken sometimes by ambulance through road, or they are even flown. There are helicopters or airplanes which are used as required to save people. So body obviously would cost much more than just few dollars. So what is so special about the body? The scriptures, they say the body actually has its value till the time it is in contact with the soul. And who is the soul? That soul or Atma is who we are. Who am I? I am actually the soul, the Atma. So what exactly is Atma? So I want to show a couple of short videos to discuss this real quick.
The Amazing Soul, the Vedic Introduction. The Vedic wisdom tradition offers us a coherent, cogent, and extensive body of knowledge about the soul. One of the defining characteristics of the Vedic wisdom tradition in general, and the Bhagavad Gita in particular, is its
We cannot hear.
Prabhu, the audio stopped. We are not
Audio has stopped.
Okay, sorry about that. Tell me now.
one of the defining characteristics
Yes, we
of the Vedic wisdom tradition in general, and the Bhagavad Gita in particular, is its clear and analytical treatment of the subject of the soul. It does not treat the soul vaguely as a metaphorical reference to our intangible essence. Rather, it presents the soul concretely as a very real spiritual entity with its own distinctive characteristics.
We sometimes say in the West, I have a soul. But I think from the Bhagavad Gita's perspective, it'd be more correct to say, I am the soul and I have a body. The soul is what provides cognition to an awareness to the body. And it's the soul that is the part of us that is aware, that feels.
The amazing soul, consciousness personified. Consciousness does not originate in the brain. Then where does it originate? The Bhagavad Gita explains that it originates from the soul. The Bhagavad Gita 13.34 illustrates the relationship between the soul and consciousness with a vivid example. O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. This verse indicates that just as the sun illuminates the universe, the soul illuminates the body with consciousness. This implies that just as sunlight is the symptom of the sun, consciousness is the symptom of the soul.
The power of the soul extends throughout the entire body. There's a passage in the Katha Upanishad which describes the soul as like the sun. It illuminates a particular area. Sometimes it's described like a lamp or a candle. It provides, the light of a candle will fill up a room in the same way that the illumination of the soul will fill up the body.
If we are inside a room and can't see the sun and the sky outside, we can still infer its presence by observing its symptom, sunlight. Similarly, Even though we are not able to see the soul inside the body, we can still infer its presence by observing its symptom, consciousness.
Okay, so this was just a short video. Any points anybody kind of felt striking, or any take-home points you identified in the video which you would like to share? So what example is given about the soul? There is a room in which there is a candle, right? So just like a candle is actually illuminating, or any light illuminating a room, similarly the soul's presence is actually causing the body to have consciousness throughout the body.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
So basically, there is implication that the soul is actually the consciousness, but oftentimes in the material world, we feel like to become consciousness of your surrounding or of anything that you experience comes from your intelligence or from your brain. So how then we make those distinction? Because honestly, when person wants to become conscious of certain things that they're experiencing, they think through it. Until they think through it, they have gone in depth thinking. They cannot come up with any consciousness or awareness of them, or of their surrounding, or of themselves, or of their activities, and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, soul, so feeling and experiencing the soul would make people aware that, oh, okay, I do have a soul. But how human beings, we experience soul is basically on the basis of feelings, emotions, and so on and so forth. So so are they saying consciousness is the emotion, or is the consciousness is the praxis, or thinking through things and thinking through the experiences that you have? So how do we basically distinguish between the experiences of soul and the experiences of mind or brain?
Yeah, so that's a very good question actually, and some of it will be covered as we discuss this, but briefly, just to touch on the question, the understanding from the Bhagavad Gita is very clear that we are the one who is experiencing, and we, Atma, self, is actually the soul. So we are the soul, we are experiencing. The mind, intelligence, ego, and the body as we see it here, made up of the 5 elements, are given to us to be able to use so that we can get the experience. It's actually a part of today's session, so we'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss if there are doubts even after you hear the whole session.
All right. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so I'll show one more video. It's a short one as well, just on the same theme about the soul.
The amazing soul, non-material. According to Vedic wisdom, the soul is essentially non-material, meaning it is not made up of matter and hence cannot be affected by matter. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dagati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapaha, na shoshayati marutaha. The Bhagavad Gita makes this point very categorically clear in chapter 2, verse 23. It states, "The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind." In this verse, the Bhagavad Gita gives us a vivid sense of the spiritual nature of the soul.
So there's many sort of key verses in the Bhagavad Gita that describe this, particularly in the second chapter, because it's in the second chapter that Krishna really begins his argument with Arjuna as to why he should fight this battle. And his first point that he makes is that it's a fact that no one really is going to die anyway. Even if you slay the body, you're not destroying the soul. It will just simply go somewhere else into another body. So he begins to develop Krishna begins to develop a perspective or a point of view on what the nature of this thing called the Atman is. And the nature of the Atman is that it's, as I said, it's eternal. It's totally unaffected by the body and by the mind. It's entirely different or separated from them. Anything that happens to the body or to the mind is not in reality happening to the self.
The statement that the soul is not affected by the various common agents that affect the material body, that is, weapons, fire, water, and wind, conveys an understanding of what it means for the soul to be beyond matter.
Okay, so the way we see everything here with a beginning and be able to get affected or even cut or degraded, the soul is not material, so it does not have the same propensities as we have, and therefore there are series of shlokas or verses which explain the nature. And why is it important to know the nature? Because our first session talked about search for happiness, that we are all looking for happiness, and until and unless we don't understand what is actually our nature, what is our true nature, we will not be able to actually completely provide all what is needed. Like for example, if you have a particular gadget, a car, and you know how the car functions, what exactly are the needs, then you provide all of that and the car works nicely. Similarly, who we are, if we know what is our actual needs, that is important. And how this body functions, all of those things also we have to know. So both work hand in hand. So we'll continue today's session. I have few more videos, but we'll see if we have time, we'll share, otherwise I'll share in the group. So we'll continue our PowerPoint. So here the example is given of a car and the body. Just like somebody is driving a car and you see the car driving on the road and you know this person has this car. Let's say, I know that, okay, my friend Pankaj, he has this car and he's driving. I would say, oh, Pankaj is going there. Now I may not even have seen Pankaj, but it's just the car. I know that it belongs to him. I'll point towards the car and say he is going there. That doesn't mean that Pankaj is the car, but he is the one sitting in the car. So that is same as when we point towards somebody. Actually, when we say, hey, he's this person, it's actually not that body, but the soul within the body, which is that person. Of course, the name will be just how we know them and is just for designating them. It's not integral to the soul, the name, but that is how we know them. But the person and the body is different. So just like here, there's a comparison of how the car works, what are the aspects, characteristics of a car, and what are characteristics of a human body. And just like if there is nobody sitting in the car, nobody driving, or even for that matter, even in full self-driving, if nobody's actually controlling it, they're not going to move. They need a controller. Controller could be automatic or controller could be manual. That may be different, but somebody has to control the functioning. And same thing is with the body. The body will function only till the time the soul is there. Once the soul goes away, even the same body which people were friends, family was embracing, they were going, embracing, loving, that same family members actually don't necessarily stay with the body for several days or weeks or months, because it will start deteriorating, decomposing. The same body to which one would be embracing, now after doing the appropriate rites, one has to go and clean the hands or take bath, because now the most important thing which was in the body, the soul, is not there. So a nice example or story is there that if you have a bird in the cage, you very nicely decorate the cage, paint it, maybe it's a golden cage, but you forget to feed the parrot. Will that parrot be very happy that, oh, I'm in such a nice gold cage, I am so nicely decorated? So it's a rhetorical question. The parrot won't be happy. Parrot will be actually miserable, and if you don't take care of the parrot by feeding, the parrot will die eventually. So the same example can be used when we are taking our life, taking care of our life. During this life, we very nicely, appropriately try to take care of this body. Body may have needs. We may, feed the body, treat it medically. For good health, we may do so many things. But if we don't attend and address the needs of the soul, then slowly the soul will feel hollow, and just like the parrot here became very weak, miserable, unfulfilled, and ultimately died, similarly our soul will actually not get that nourishment, the fulfillment, and the happiness. So this is what we just discussed. Another example is given that sometimes somebody may go to a mental health unit. So in a mental health unit, some of you are doctors, you may have visited. The one of the aspects is that people may not know who they are, and you may ask them their name, they may not know, or they may think themselves as somebody else. If that is happening, somebody is thinking themselves to be a different person, or somebody may have different kind of diseases, problems, schizophrenia, dementia, and they're not really knowing what appropriate thing is, then in layman language people may think, oh, you're crazy. But most of us as humans, we are thinking ourselves to be this body, and if we are not this body but we are actually different from it, then we are in a similar state of craziness where we are only fixated about satisfying the body and we neglect the soul. So we'll go a little fast because I know the presentation today is a little big. So we already discussed this. Scriptures are like mothers, and we are the soul, not this body. Okay, so somebody may say, okay, what is the proof? What is the proof for existence of the soul? So there are a lot of proofs. we can discuss in few ways. Just like there was a nice question earlier about distinguishing between the soul, the mind, the intelligence, and all of those things. We don't see our mind either. We don't see our intelligence either. But we can understand from different indirect ways that yes, this person is intelligent, or somebody has a very sharp, intelligence, or has a very certain type of mind. We can analyze those things. So a lot of things we can discuss under these headings. So I'll continue to discuss those. So logically, somebody dies. Generally, what do people say? People say he has passed away, right? So who has passed away? The body was still there. So that passed away thing means actually the most important thing in the body, which was the soul, has now passed away. The other thing, if I were to ask all of you to, can everybody, whoever possibly can, just make their video on just for 1 minute. If everybody can make their video on. Anybody else can make their video on just for a minute? Okay, so if somebody can lift their left hand up, or everybody can lift their left hand up, okay, and when you have to point or say address this hand, would you say this is my hand? Is that right? Yeah. Same thing for the other right hand. This is my hand, right? What about if somebody says, okay, what about this? You'll say these are my eyes. Is that right? This is my nose. This is my mouth. If you say here, yes, this is my body. This is my shoulder. This is my arm. So everything is actually belonging to you. But then who are you? You are different from the body. Even if we point here, this is my chest, this is my heart. We say this is my, but who am I? So that person who I am is actually the soul, the Atma. So scientifically, we have experiments also. These are called as NDEs, near-death experience. So Dr. Michael Sabom, he has done some research in this direction and identified the various cases where the patients were totally under anesthesia, not really, not anesthesia, sorry. This is when the patients had almost like in the stage of leaving the body. They had a cardiac arrest and they were being resuscitated, and they were in a situation where there was no pulse, there was no activity going on, pretty much person had died, but they were actually able to see everything what happened, and they were able to relay it when they recovered from those experiences. Or somebody who may be terminal stage of cancer, almost at the point of death, lost pulse, nothing is there, and then recovered from it, and they come and tell their stories about their experience, and in those experience they are able to see and they are able to observe what had happened even though they were not there, from medical standpoint. So we'll go a little forward. There are different ways they describe these near-death experiences, what experience they had, where they had gone, what had happened. Some people describe as how they are seeing from above. Of course, reincarnation, which is very familiar term, to most of us. So Dr. Ian Stevenson, he was professor of psychiatry in West Virginia, and he did 2000 cases he studied of reincarnation, and he actually ruled out all the so he filtered and only took those who were totally meeting the criteria, and the criterias were very rigid. They won't take anything which is not having very solid foundation. In fact, I wanted to show a video in with regards to reincarnation as well. So give me 1 second. I'll share the video real quick.
Seems like she's had history of suicide.
He would just be crying. He'd say, airplane crash on fire.
Hi, Atul Prabhu. We are not able to hear the sound.
Exposed to in this.
Sorry about that. So still you were not able to hear the sound, or you were?
No, we were not hearing it.
Let me just play it again.
I can read the Japanese easy as pie.
When he was about 3, he started to draw a lot. He started to sign some of those drawings James 3.
He would just be crying. He'd say, airplane crash on fire.
So one day I asked him, I said, why are you signing your name James 3? His response was, well, I'm the 3rd James.
It's being called the case for reincarnation.
There you go.
This 7-year-old boy from Louisiana not only shares the same name as this World War II fighter pilot, they seem to share the same soul.
Initially, what caught my attention was James's extreme fascination with airplanes.
James Leininger's parents don't believe in past lives, but realized early on their son was unique.
I took him to the Kavanaugh Flight Museum, that every time we went to the area where the World War II aircraft were located, he would just stand there and point, mesmerized.
He was barely 2 years old. Here's home video. While the other youngsters viewed the bombers with a childlike curiosity, little James recognized the steely war machines with a certain familiarity and comfort.
The pilot put them on?
I said, "Oh, look, there's a bomb on the bottom." He said, "That's not a bomb, that's a drop tank."
That innocent trip to the museum would dramatically alter their lives and the lives of complete strangers forever.
He started having the nightmares, and that was my first indication that there was something wrong. The screaming was not like a normal child crying. It was a panic-stricken, terrorized screaming.
Over and over again, James had the same terrible nightmare, 4 to 5 times a week. He was too young to explain the dream, but he could draw.
He started doing these little drawings of airplanes shooting at other airplanes or being shot down. It's the only thing he still draws. Bombing ships, you see men parachuting. Here's another one where planes are dropping bombs. This is a carrier, and you can see where what he does is when he draws them, he starts with just a picture, and then he just starts drawing lines all over the place like he's playing out a movie.
I kept thinking, where is he getting this? What's he watching on television? But I was a stay-at-home mom, so I know that there wasn't anything that he was being exposed to.
Not exposed to in this life, but perhaps, just maybe, somebody else was. Decades earlier, another little boy named James grew up in South Bend, Indiana, with the same insatiable fascination with airplanes. He became a fighter pilot for the Navy and shipped off to fight in World War II. March 3, 1945, during a mission near Iwo Jima, he took a direct hit, was declared missing and presumed dead.
He would wake up in the middle of the night, he'd be laying on his back, kicking his feet up at the ceiling and screaming. It was almost like if you were laying on your back inside a box and you're trying to kick the lid off the box. When I would wake him up, he would just be crying, and he'd say, "Airplane crash on fire, little man can't get out." He said that over and over, night after night.
What goes through your mind when your 2-year-old says things like that?
It freaked me out. It's like I can see in your face that it's startling, and it's frightening.
I was alarmed by the frequency of the dreams or nightmares.
This was just the beginning. Nothing could prepare Andrea and Bruce Leininger for what James revealed next.
And I remember he laid on his back, and he did the same motion like he did in the nightmares. He laid on his back and kicked up at the ceiling, and he goes, "Mama, the little man's going like this." And he laid on his back and kicked his feet up. The little man's going, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh," can't get out. And I said, "Well, who's the little man, baby?" And he goes, "Me."
They have the same name and boyish good looks. James M. Houston, raised in the Midwest. James M. Leininger, a young boy from the Bayou.
Whoa! There's something in the eyes. It's undeniable.
That's not all they share.
Somehow James Houston's spirit has affected my son, either through reincarnation. I don't know how it happened. Initially, what caught my attention was James's extreme fascination with airplanes.
And every night he slept with his G.I. Joe action figures, which he named.
I took him to the Kavanaugh Flight Museum.
Here's home video. While the other kids casually look at the plane, 2-year-old James seems to inspect it. Watch as he checks the underbelly, then climbs inside, donning the headset.
The pilot put them on?
I thought Bruce and I were just gonna faint.
They questioned, what kind of plane?
Corsair.
Why did your airplane crash?
My plane was shot down.
Who shot your plane?
He looked at me like I was a village idiot. He said,
"The Japanese." I kept thinking, where is he getting this? I was a stay-at-home mom, so I know that there wasn't anything that he was being exposed to.
Not exposed to in this life, but perhaps, just maybe, somebody else was. Decades earlier, James Houston grew up with the same insatiable fascination with airplanes. He became a naval fighter pilot and fought in World War II. March 3, 1945, during a mission near Iwo Jima, he took a direct hit. At age 21, was declared missing and presumed dead.
"Where did he take off from a boat?"
Do you remember the name of your boat? He said, "Natoma."
Found several thousand hits on the word Natoma.
The USS Natoma Bay launched into battle headed for Iwo Jima in the fight for Lady Gulf.
It's the biggest naval battle in the history of the world.
Leo Pyatt served on the ship. From his home in Ohio, he organizes the Natoma Bay reunions. That's how Bruce found him.
I wanted to disprove it.
He asked a few questions about, did I know some of the people? Oh yeah, I remember those people. And so he got very quiet.
It was all real. The people and places James described actually existed. And remember those G.I. Joe dolls that James named? Turns out 3 men with the same names, first and last, served on the Natoma and were killed in action. James said they greeted him in heaven after his crash.
I'd always asked him, do you remember what your name was? And he always said James. But his name is James.
Yes, there was a Jim Houston, a rather large shell, just hit him in the engine and it burst into flames and went down.
They showed Leo the drawings.
He was right on the nose. I'm sure, in my mind, that he was there.
Leo invited James, now 3, to the reunion. James recognized several pilots, even called them by name.
You're Bob Greenwald. I'm serious.
He never met Bob Greenwald.
No, he'd never met him before.
And someone else was invited. James Houston's sister, Ann.
And he goes, it's not Ann, it's Annie. She wasn't my oldest sister. I had an older sister than that. And I said, you did? Who is that? And he goes, Ruth. I mean Ruth.
Eddie is what they called me when I was little. Knowing my name and my sister's name, things that my brother did when he was a kid. It's too amazing to describe how he would feel that way, but he does. He considers me his sister.
But does she consider James her brother?
I think it's probably a reincarnation of my brother.
Anne was so touched, she gave James items from her brother's final effects.
The little George Washington bust had been on my brother's desk all through school.
I said, where's the statue? He said, I put it on my desk.
As James gets older, his memories of James Houston and the nightmares are beginning to fade.
Okay, so this was just, one of the stories and videos I have, but I have a lot of material for so many different stories or videos, written material. A lot of such information is there, but because of lack of time, I think we'll keep going forward. Take a few more minutes to show some of the other aspects of this PowerPoint, sharing the different perspectives. Let me just get this. So we saw one example of reincarnation. This is another Dr. Pasricha in Bangalore. She also worked with Dr. Stevenson and did studies, more than 100 studies in India. And Dr. Ian Stevenson had done more than 2,000 studies. This was another study. We'll not go into detail, but she's a small girl who was going to tell about her whole story and how she met with all her previous birth family. So we see some logic, we see science, we already had discussed scriptures a little bit in the beginning in the videos, but this is what Bhagavad Gita says. Bhagavad Gita says basically here, so Dehino asmin yatha dehe komaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyate. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes to another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So, is it a fact or is it a fiction? Scriptures. So we see, is it a fact or a fiction about the soul? So we see from logic, we see from science, and we see from scriptures how different stages, we have different sets of body. Our cells change, our different chemicals in the body change, but we remain the same. And that person who remains the same is actually the soul. So why don't we remember our past lives? So there are a lot of ways we can understand any kind of traumatic experience. So forgetfulness, what to say of past life, but even in this life is a blessing, because people who don't forget have more issues, more problems. Sometimes a traumatic experience, if we remember, we have post-traumatic disorders and challenges like that. So reincarnation in itself actually is such a traumatic experience. To have to leave the body to die, it's very painful, and have to get another body. So that the whole experience is not something which is always helpful, pleasurable, and something which people would want to remember. And therefore the body has its mechanism, and the whole the way nature takes care of this aspect is a blessing actually, that we don't remember all the details. But then there are situations, there are people who do remember, and those are examples which we have talked about. So we discussed this. Now talking about the bodies, the body which we have right now is actually can be understood in different levels. First level is the gross body, which is the most obvious outer perceivable aspect of the body, which is made up of the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether or space. The next level of the body is the subtle body, which is made up of the mind, intelligence, and the ego. And the third level of body is actually the spiritual body, which is the spirit soul. Now, at the time of death, the gross body made of the 5 elements that stays, but the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego, goes with the soul to the next body. So that is how the transmigration of body takes place. So this is the 3 bodies understanding: gross body, subtle body, and the spiritual body. So the gross body is made up of 5 elements, as I said. Subtle body is made up of 3 elements, and then soul is who we actually are. That is the characteristic is that it's eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. That is the nature of the soul: eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. This is just showing the 3 different layers: mind, intelligence, and ego. These are the 3 elements of the subtle body. In this particular diagram, the horses are representing the senses. The mind is being represented by the ropes or the reins which are controlling the horses. The driver of the chariot is actually the intelligence, and the passenger who's sitting behind is the soul. So normally what should happen, the passenger should tell the driver where they have to go. Driver controls the rein or the ropes, and the ropes make the horses go in the right direction. So that is how normally things should be. But if we take this example of senses, mind, intelligence, and soul, and apply it to the chariot and see the current condition, people are actually going where the senses are pulling them. So senses means like tongue. Tongue wants to eat something. Tongue is pulling us. The ropes are getting pulled. The driver is actually getting pulled in that direction, even though it has to go in the opposite direction, but now he's getting pulled. And the passenger of course has to go, even though passenger may have a different direction. So similarly, the soul is actually getting pulled in the direction of where the senses are taking us. So when our chariot is not going in the direction where passenger wants, but goes in the opposite direction, that is not giving the right or the smooth journey or the desirable journey. So that is what can happen with us if we get pulled in this manner. This we discussed. So Bhagavad Gita 2.22 talks about what happens after death. So just like we are wearing clothes, and when these clothes get dirty, we change it and put fresh clothes. Similarly, the body which we have right now, this is what Bhagavad Gita is saying. As a person puts on new dress, giving up the old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Then the property of the soul is, like we had heard in the video also, can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor burned, nor moistened. This is the nature of the soul. So there are different aspects of the soul which are further talked about in this session, in this particular seminar, but we're not going to go into all those details. What is the form of the soul? Different aspects are there, but this we can discuss later when we discuss the Bhagavad Gita in detail. So I'll stop here actually. Anybody has any questions or any points to discuss at this point? I'm just taking a look to the remaining part, if anything. Okay, great. Yeah, so most of this is covered. Any questions, comments, or any points anybody would like to bring up? Maushumi ji, would you like to share any questions or anything now?
No,
Okay.
actually, sorry, my video is dark, so I can't.
No
So
problem.
actually, I loved it. This whole discussion actually, it's very interesting that you truly answered my question. So it's very relevant what you had said earlier, that this through whole discussion is going to be based on those questions, and I'm glad I asked those, because now it really gave me a very solid answer to those specific questions that I asked, the distinctness and how to think about soul, and especially the example of the reincarnation was very, very interesting to see. And I'm glad that you said it's painful to carry those. I can imagine if some parents have children, or the child who is remembering the past life can be so disturbing, and not all human beings are that knowledgeable.
Yes,
So,
exactly. In fact, many times in such cases, the parents suppress that aspect. Like if the child is having, they'll tell everybody, "Hey, don't talk about that." So many of the people who when we have had these discussions, they have come forward and said, a couple of people that, "Hey, I used to be one of those. I used to remember, and then my parents they stopped doing, and then slowly, forgot about it." Or
so
some of the other people have told that how their brother or their child used to be like that, and how they changed, and now they're normal.
So, how is it a good idea to suppress that when a child is actually, talking spontaneously of what they remember from their past life? Is it a good idea for the parents to suppress them,
So
or?
yeah, every child is different in different situation. It could be very different. Like in this particular situation with James, that went pretty smooth, and he was able to deal with it. I have some other videos also. I'll show a Hindi video, because tomorrow we will have a Hindi session on the same thing, and that will be a different video than this one. So just few examples of how different children handle it in a different manner, and for some it's totally fine.
Okay. All right. That's a good suggestion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It
Thank you
was
very much.
very insightful. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. And we do have some books also on this topic, which I can share in the group. And then, you can order them on Amazon, or look into the library and read, those who are more interested into this.
Sure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And because of lack of
Hey,
time. I
I'm
think.
sorry. I just want to introduce myself quickly. I want to say
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. Yes, thank you for having me. Thank you, Dr. Roy, for inviting me. It's such an amazing discussion and that I have enjoyed. It's very interesting because when my daughter was 3 years old, she said her first word that was a place of a country that we have never heard of.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and she kept saying it, and we were just not understanding what that word was. And out of curiosity, we looked it up, and it was in fact a place in a country that we have never visited. So
Wow.
it's very interesting. So thank you for that.
Sure, and thank you so much for joining. Actually, we have been doing these sessions for last couple of weeks. We'll be doing next week another session, which the topic will be why do good things sorry why do bad things happen to good people. So this is topic we'll be taking, but I'm I'm very happy that you were able to join. Would you mind just if we can request you to introduce yourself, just so that we can keep you posted in the group, and everybody, the whole community, can know about you.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. And I am a colleague and a friend of Dr. Roy. And so it's very interesting when she called me and she said, you might want to join the session. Her and I, we've had several conversations about my interests in better understanding Hinduism and Buddhism. I embrace both as a philosophy more than a religion. So I am happy to be here, and I will be honored to be part of the group for further discussions. Thank you so much.
Sure, sure. So maybe I can request Dr. Roy to add you to our, new group. And I don't know if Dr. Roy is a part there is or not. I'll make sure that she is added to that group, and then she can add you as well, so that you can be posted about our, all our events, upcoming events.
Thank you. I'll be honored. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I think we'll stop here, and we'll continue our sessions. Tomorrow will be in Hindi, and then next week will be our next session in English next Saturday, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes, please.
So is the Zoom link same for all the sessions for Saturday? What
Yes,
time?
Zoom link is
Oh,
going to be the same for all
okay.
sessions. That's
Okay,
correct.
great. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.